Life is hectic, demanding, and doesn't stop. When honest with ourselves, we must confess we often don't know what the hell we're doing. The Larkcast is an ongoing conversation about the inclusive and mischievous nature of God's presence through the lens of all the things that make up this phenomenon we refer to as life. Astonishing grace and refreshing honesty collide right here for your weekly encouragement.
So we hop on here and we record these. We try to record these half-hour episodes so that we don't get yelled at. And but we do a lot of pre-show, and sometimes we'll hop on these calls. And we're on Zoom because Russ is in Florida and I'm in the Midwest, and we'll just be talking and catching up for hour and a half. A lot of times we're just like, dang, man, we wish we would have recorded that entire thing. But by the time we hit record, we're definitely into it, ready to go. We have laughed a ton and dissected what we're going to be chatting about and all that. So welcome back to the Larkcast, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Welcome into the middle of this conversation that we've been having for the last hour. We are glad you are here. You are joined by Russ and Tony, the Larkcats.
Yes, the Larkcats.
Breaking down good news through the lens of It Is Finished on the Larkcast.
Yes, absolutely. And we are continuing in our conversation in the Gospel of John. We're in chapter 10 today. But man, before we get into that, we were chatting. We both got a lot going on right now.
Yeah, dude. Which is funny because it totally ties into the passage we're about to look at. I've got a house that I'm still working through with the insurance companies and the adjusters that are coming out and looking at things, taking pictures. Are back again for the third time today. I'm looking at them right now through the window as I'm speaking. My parents are in town for my daughter's 21st birthday. My dad,
happy birthday, Emily.
Yes, happy birthday.
We FaceTimed her last night.
Emily, the big 21, and my dad's outside walking adjusters around and
getting them lined up,
getting them lined up as he naturally does.
Extracting a little bit more money from that insurance.
Yeah,
claim.
They're like, well, there's this wrong, and he's like, yeah, that's nonsense. That was there before. Shut up, boys. Move on to the next thing. But also, dude, got to take my little dude Eli to his first Bucks game yesterday. Shout out to Michael and Noel for making that happen, man. Such an awesome experience. Eli stood at 5 years old and cheered every single play the entire football game. It was crazy, bro.
Yeah, he's not like my daughter Corinne that wanted to go to Kids Zone and get cotton candy and all that. He's watching the game.
Yeah, there was that one point where I'm like, hey, let's go get a hot dog. He goes, wait, they're still playing. And I was like,
that's awesome,
buddy. It's going to be halftime in a minute. Let's get there early. He didn't want to go.
Yeah, he's gonna be the kind of kid that I can for real talk, sports with when he gets a little older.
Yeah, man. So
you got all that going on. I'm in the middle of a couple of remodel projects, which if you've ever, had a 9-to-5 and other stuff going on, and then you're doing remodeling at night and on the weekends and stuff like that. I'm in the middle of it, dude, right now. Yeah. Late nights. I landed an office space in the this historic building in my city, which is pretty cool. My grandparents got married there a long time ago. It's in Indiana, and Indiana had really lax laws back in the day for marriage, whereas other places would make you wait. So people would travel. They would just travel to Indiana to come get married. It was kind of known, this judge, the courthouse was known as the marriage mill, and this judge was known as the dude that would just marry anybody.
Didn't Muhammad Ali get married in that building?
And Ronald Reagan, I just found out.
In the building where your office is.
Yeah, Reagan and Muhammad Ali. And then right down the street is where what's his face? The notorious gangster guy. I can't believe it. It's my town's only claim to fame, and I can't remember the guy's name. They made a movie about it. John
Dillinger.
John Dillinger. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
he
old
escaped from jail.
Well, the jail was down the road a little bit, but yeah. So I got a old space there. It's built in 1880. Huge, tall ceilings, like 15 feet tall. Really cool. And it's just been, a lot, just electric and paint, and and then the stuff going on back home. So I'm just like dog tired, but in the midst of all that, like there's a lot of really cool things happening too. Like I was sharing with you pre-show, just like some of the
Yeah.
conversations I'm having with people around me, and just some really cool, like just ministry and conversation and stuff like that. Just things to be excited about.
Oh, I
So
love
it's
it.
just like it's typical life, right, man? Like you got the things that shouldn't be, right? The things that suck.
Yep.
And then life as it is and is sometimes and shouldn't, and all that. The good stuff. So yeah, and here we are
Are
podcasting in the middle of it.
the
Just
middle
two
of it
dudes. Just two dudes
of the
hopping
good
on here to
times.
record to tell everyone how they ought to live.
Yeah. Yep. But I think that's kind of what I laughed about, man, as we were catching up. Is like you have these stories of like good things that are happening that you're celebrating that are simple and beautiful, like these gifts of the Lord, like children and family and time together, and even fun things to enjoy, like a ball game, but also fun things to enjoy that you can even worship the Lord in and through, like work and the projects, man, that you're stepping into.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, you've got house projects going on that are upside down. I got house projects going upside down, and I kind of found myself laughing about it, man. Pre-shows, like we're about to go dive into John 10, where Jesus is dealing with a religious crowd on one hand, and then people that are hungry for actual good news of what God's like on the other hand. And the one crowd is just constantly ramming down everybody's throat, like what should be, what
Yeah.
should be, what should be. And in the middle of all that, you've got him going, yeah, like, yeah, I know what should be. I wrote it, but what should be isn't. That's not generally how life works.
Yeah.
There's tension in the midst of the beauty all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And once you make a God out of what should be, you'll miss what's actually is in
Mm-hmm.
me, even in the midst of the highs and the lows,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably why this passage is often referred to as like speaking to what they call the good shepherd.
Man, with that, I'm just gonna go ahead and read the passage and we can dive in.
Yeah, I
It's
do.
not like John 7 and 8 where it's like 60 verses a chapter. Like this is a pretty short section here, and it's all pretty rich. So John 10 is where we're at. And he kicks off, really it's an extension of what happened in chapter 9, just to bring you up to speed if this is the first Lark cast you're listening to. We ran John 9 last time, and there was a man who was born blind, and Jesus healed him. And instead of toasting and celebrating, these
Yeah.
religious leaders launched a religious interrogation that ended
Yeah.
up with them kicking this man and his family out of the religious community, something known as church discipline or excommunication or whatever. And in a community like the Jewish community, that's a pretty, huge deal that would have all
Yeah.
kinds of implications, for your family, socially, economically, all that kind of stuff. And man, Jesus is just putting a spotlight on how much religion really truly kills and robs. And so he really addresses in 10 now their leadership and their what should be their leadership, supposed leadership, and supposed care of the
Mm-hmm.
people that they're looking after. It's really not much care at all. It's just inquisition, basically, is what it is. Um, and so Jesus is going to do a lot of contrasting with himself and these guys. But 10's really just an extension. That's not a break or a shift in scene. So he says this: truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow, but they will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So Jesus says again, He said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Pause at verse 11.
Mm. Dang,
So he's
dude.
using an analogy that I guess they don't understand. Like, how do they not understand? Like, how do they not understand that a shepherd is like a legitimate analogy for their role in Jerusalem as people who are paid through temple tax to lead the people, right? Teach the scriptures, care for families, maybe, right? I would think that that's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. My experience in the church world, like you, man, became a believer as an adult, young adult, out of the house sort of thing, but still, young in age and uninterested in church, become a believer through a friend, man, like in the work scene, discipled in that, then plug into a church. And I just remember like plugging into the church and then later on, like serving in the church, which led to later on, like going to Bible college, right? Seminary. So the whole training, man, that I received seemed to come with this sort of notion of a good shepherd as one who basically oversees people, you know? He's responsible for all of them. He's in charge of all of them. He needs to do everything that they need to become the people they're supposed to be and achieve the things that they're supposed to achieve for God's good name, okay, in his glory. And so I wonder if like these guys are having a hard time. Like they're sort of, it's almost like they're going like, yeah. I get the whole like good shepherd thing and what that means. Like there's shepherds literally out in the fields right now. They should grab onto this. They shouldn't be perplexed by what he's saying, by saying that God's like this. But you wonder if their whole training in what that means is opposite of what a shepherd actually does. Which I'm bringing up my past because that's how it happened to me. I learned about the good shepherd and what a good shepherd does, but it was all through a lens that's kind of opposite of what an actual shepherd who would have been out in the field among them, right, is doing. A shepherd is leading sheep to a place where they can feed themselves. He's leading them to a place where they can thrive. He's leading them to a place where they can rest, where they can find right water for their thirst. He does it in a way that this is all for their good. And then part of his role is just protecting them while they're in this.
Right.
But everything I was trained in the name of being a good shepherd within the church world, kind of, parallel that to like, right, this Jewish community here and their leadership. Your job was like, no, man, you have to like fix the sheep. You have to, it's almost like I got trained in this idea that our job was to literally take grass and shove it in the sheep's mouth in the name of feeding them,
Right.
beat them when they're out of line. You know what I'm saying? Like all these things. Meanwhile, you would watch a shepherd in the field would never do that, which is why the sheep go to him. And so it's this weird like dichotomy, I guess might be the word for it, of watching shepherd and how the beautiful act that you see with them among, right, their sheep. But then somehow in the name of doing that, you undo everything they actually do. And that's what you're then trained in and how you see it. And so when Jesus shows up like doing the things that a shepherd would do, it doesn't compute to them. And so they can't make the connection.
Yeah, it's definitely
anyways, that's just
more,
my thoughts over the years.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely more like policing.
Yeah.
Policing people. And it's kind of like it's hard to hear if you're one of these guys and you literally pride yourself on having this position in this community only to be called a wolf, only to be called a thief and a robber and a killer.
Yeah.
Because you don't enter in by the door. The gatekeeper doesn't open the door for you. You have to climb the wall and they
Yep.
won't listen to you willingly. So you have to force them to listen to you with
Yep.
threats of removing them, from their, cultural, social position, and, threatening their livelihood
Their
against them,
whole
which
livelihood.
is
Yeah.
what happened in chapter 9. And Jesus knows this.
Yeah.
He sees like, well, they're not complying. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to follow your leadership. And so you use threats and
Yep.
you bully people. But to your point, a shepherd, man, who actually like cares for sheep, you don't have to wield a title or a position or an org chart. People are drawn to you. They want to submit to you because of your care, because of your love for them and your investment in them. And I was just talking to my buddy yesterday, just because he and I kind of like came up in the church in the same way. I eventually came on staff like you, but he didn't. But we kind of like both were like, volunteers doing all kinds of ministry. And eventually they offered me a position and, all that kind of stuff. And I did the whole, full-time pastor thing for like, 10 years. And we were just talking about leaving the Western normative church to do more ministry as like just street shepherds, just everyday people on the block, like at our local, spots, wherever we go, wherever we are, wherever we find ourselves, life, work, play, leisure, right? You got your bars and spots you go to, the people, how you're culturally embedded where you are. And I have the same where I am. Dude, like titles mean nothing.
Nothing.
In this, nothing. In fact,
Education
what I found, having a title for the first, I think it was like 4 years of being here, actually hindered me in being able to get to a place where I can have good conversations with my neighbors at like a spiritual level, deeper in life. There was a lot of suspicion towards me,
Bro, what shuts down a conversation on a plane quicker than what do you do? Well, I'm a pastor.
Right.
This is what happens. Oh, let me put these headphones in. That's nice.
Exactly. So these guys like are all into just their title and their position, and they're bullies, man. And Jesus is like, dude, you're robbing, killing, and destroying. Yeah. You think you're doing it in God's name. Let me tell you, let me give you an example of what this looks like. A shepherd brings them out of their gate, and they can go to and from and find pasture. And I love that phrase because it totally, you think of protection, you think of freedom, you think of rest there. Yeah. Right. Not like, damn, you better get lined up or else.
Or this is over, man. Yeah. Like there's a beautiful scene within that. I call it, and we've talked about this before a lot. It's freedom, but it's freedom in dependency. Mm-hmm. 2 words, in dependency. The sheep live in dependency upon the shepherd. He's not shoving grass in their mouths. Okay. He's not forcing their heads under water to make them drink. He's not beating them until they're tired and they finally go to sleep. Instead, he's caring for them and providing there's a safety, there's a dependency that comes with being connected to the shepherd that allows them to go to and from and enjoy these things like rest and water and food and connection with others. You know what I mean? There's all this beauty, man, in these simple things. That's all provided by the Good Shepherd. Mm-hmm. But if you think these sheep need to be something different than what they are, if they need to graduate to some next level, if they need to climb some ladder to achieve some certain status or position, right? Well, then now all of a sudden you're not the Good Shepherd, right? You're more like a tyrant boss. You're looking constantly at what should be and then forcing everyone around you to steer clear of what shouldn't be in the name of becoming and achieving what should be. Mm-hmm. In their case, right, the law. Not realizing that that law is good and beautiful, and it is a picture of harmony. By all means, walk in it. But at no point is God ever saying that walking in this is somehow dependent upon our relationship with him. In fact, if the law is going to do anything, it's just going to reveal to you that you're not going to be able to walk in this. Mm-hmm. Hence, here comes the Good Shepherd, and one will be dependent upon. and learn to move in and about all the simple, beautiful things of life that are right, that are in front of us. But you guys aren't like that. You're driving these people toward what should be, like slave drivers. And so therefore you rob from them, you kill, you destroy, you even steal the very joy in life and rest and adventure, you could even say freedom, right? That they've been given in me. You rob it, you steal it. And
which is shown in chapter 9.
oh,
Like,
it's
they
totally, I mean,
literally
that's exactly what they did.
They robbed and killed a whole celebratory moment.
Yeah. And a family.
And ruined a family.
Lost. Yeah. Those parents lost their livelihood, their business, their home, their whole social community. Gone, bro. Canceled in a second. This is what religion does in the name of what should be.
In the name of what should be.
And so the shepherd gets lost in this. And I'll just say this, dude. There's 2 times in my life where I have been moved to tears in the presence of actual sheep. Okay, like actual, like shepherd sheep, like the real ones walking around that you shave and make jackets from and even eat. You know what I'm saying? Depending on like your cultural background.
One of these stories better be like just a fantastic roasted leg of lamb or something like that. It's got
that would also bring
me. Be what
that would also bring me to tears. I was in the Ukraine in 2008. I traveled across the country with a former Ukrainian family that escaped under a communist rule, came to America, was a part of a church plant that I led in Asheville. Went over there with them and we did a bunch of ministry among the orphans in different cities and traveled and spoke. And we took this huge group of orphans, man, that they had picked up off the street at this one orphanage. By the way, they don't have like a system like we do. So these kids are literally like on the street begging at like 7. And I got a chance to go with them and we took all these kids and we took them to Crimea, which is this isle at the bottom of, you know, the Ukraine is this beautiful, like mountainous region in the ocean, and or I should say the sea. But I remember walking over this hill in the middle of nowhere, and there's a shepherd walking across the field, like an actual shepherd, dude, who sleeps on the ground outside year round, carrying a staff with this whole herd of sheep walking with him. And dude, there was like this, like a connection, man, that you could see in what he did, noises that he made, directions that he went in, you know what I mean, where they would follow. And then he led them to this one area where they all started to eat, and he just sat down and just watched them. And he watched them with like this joy. Like, I'm just so happy to be here in this moment, just to be with them, man. I just remember just watching that from afar, and like, I couldn't help, man, but like shed tears of joy going, wow, you don't see that, right? Like, in Tampa,
the analogy is a bit
boats
disconnected for us, you know, because
right.
we don't live in a culture like that.
Yeah. And then there was just one other quick time where I went to another place like this in the US, and there was sheep everywhere in this field, and they moved into this massive barn, and they're making all this crazy, you know, noise, and they're all spread out. And there's all these people in there walking around, and they're looking at them, and they're doing tours, you know what I mean? Like of this farm, and all these sheep, dude, are like clueless as to what's going on. And there's all this noise, again, all these people walking around talking. And then in walks this dude among all these same people, who just starts talking to a guy that's walking next to him. No different than anyone else there. And bro, they all started making the same noise and herded together and all moved in a mass group toward him. And they walked along the edge of the fence as a group as he walked and talked with this dude. And I was like, holy cow.
Like they knew his voice.
They heard his voice the minute he walked in, and he can make the distinction among all the other voices.
Yeah.
And they joyfully went to him.
And
I'm like, man, that's so opposite of the relationship all these people are having with the Pharisees.
Yeah.
Who think they're shepherds and they're anything but.
Yeah.
Even though they have an example of that all around them.
Yeah. That's great. That's really, really good. Two things come to my mind as you shared. One is the whole, these guys are definitely dialed in on what ought to be, what should be. And they seem to be just like bypassing the heart completely, not
Yeah.
caring at all about just the process or the heart that's included. Jesus seems to kind of like really highlight that in the Sermon on the Mount. Like, man, if you really want to go in on the law here, well, then your righteousness needs to exceed that of the Pharisees. And then he gets
Yeah.
into, matters of the heart, which is where you really take a real, true, honest look at yourself. These guys are just interested in, compliance.
Mm,
But I think one of the awesome things about the gospel um, is that, God was made flesh in Christ.
yeah.
And I think one of the ways that I think Jesus is able to have such sympathy and compassion is because he knows what it's like to be human. He
Mm,
knows our experience. And so in the midst of all like what should be or shouldn't be and ought to be, I think that just God is the God of what is. He is the God of what actually is in our
yeah, dude.
lives. And he comes and meets us there. And because he's been made flesh, he has sympathy, because he's lived this life. He was tempted in every respect as we are. Hebrews
Hmm.
chapter 4, I think. But, was without sin, but understood temptation. He knows what it's like to live our experience. The other thing is the whole idea of like these sheep hearing this guy's voice. I think one of the hard things as a Christian and actually being in a relationship with God and just navigating this life, everything in my own head and heart and life and other people around me and, all these kinds of things is like actually like discerning, what is God's voice. And there's a
Mm,
lot of like, I don't know if you wrestle with this, but I mean, I shouldn't say that. I know you wrestle with this because I know you're like one of my best friends. It's like there's a lot of like inner condemnation and just judgment and guilt and shame and fear, that happen internally.
yeah.
And a lot of times, man, like I shouldn't say a lot of times, but there was a time in my life where I had a really hard time discerning between voices of condemnation, fear, and shame, and the soft, subtle voice of just, I love you. And I would say it was probably like 2012. I had a breaking point. I had just left the church I was at for 4 years, went to this church plant, and the shepherd that was there, the pastor that was there, was very much like these Pharisees. And I was
Mm,
just trying so hard to like live up to these expectations and like be this person I wanted to be. And I couldn't do it. I came to a breaking point. And it was hard, but it was like so good because I feel like for the very first time in a very long time, I just reveled in God's love for me while sitting on my bed. Like it was just like a weekday afternoon. I was just like, I can't do any of this. I'm not any of this. But then
mm,
like God was so good to just be like, I love you. And I remember just being overwhelmed with just that simple idea, you
yeah.
know? So yeah. And then just trying to fight to hear his voice, that no condemnation, all these like
Yeah.
good, juicy, gracious words that we've been drawn out in John's gospel, his
Yeah.
voice versus someone else who's trying to rob, kill, and destroy.
Yeah. That's good, man. So good. And you have sometimes what I experience and have been guilty of for sure is in the fear that people will somehow abuse this or that it will somehow turn into a license, that they'll go run out and, do whatever and say that it's okay because God loves me. We wind up robbing, stealing, killing, right? And destroying
Mm-hmm.
because that's just what religion does.
Mm-hmm.
Religion thinks that what should be needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
That what should be needs to be.
And it needs to be fast
Yep.
and right now.
And it works to accomplish that. Where what I find in the scriptures is a God who's saying what should be is good and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
but it is not needed for me to love you. Life
Not
will
needed for me to be
always,
your shepherd.
right. Yeah.
It's not needed
Uh,
for him to go pursue you, even if you're not part of the fold yet.
Yep. Which we got some parables about that for sure that we can dive into. But yeah, but even in your own story, man, in my story, like, I love the way you put it. He's the God of what is. He's not giving a blank page and saying, yeah, go do whatever you want.
Right.
Right. If anything, he's warning us always about things that are gonna
Yeah.
definitely make life hard. But
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of it, he's saying, I'm the God of what is.
Mm-hmm.
The shepherd is the shepherd of what is. What the sheep need to be, should be, could be, ought to be. It's irrelevant. It's these are the sheep. And I love them because I love them. And I'm with them and lead them because I love them. Period. Dude, that's a beautiful truth, man, that you just cannot take away.
Yeah,
Can't.
he cares for us. He's made us. He sustains us. The breath that I've used in my life to just kind of cry out in genuine moments that he's good is given by him, and the same breath I've used to complain and grumble under my breath, and you know what I'm saying, and like point fingers at him and be lack gratitude, is also given by him too, and his patience. I mean, he cares for us. My favorite psalm, dude, is Psalm 103, and there's this one little phrase in there. It just says, for he knows our frame and he remembers that we're dust. Like he remembers like where we came from. He knows our frame. Like he knows us. He knows we're fickle. He knows we're faithless. He knows that we're prone to bitching and complaining and making bad decisions and not doing the ought to be thing very well. He knows that.
Yep.
He knew that about us when he came with the specific purpose to lay down his life, as we see here in John 10. The good shepherd lays his life down for the sheep. He knew exactly who we were when he jumped into a reconciled relationship with us.
Yeah. It's so good. It's pretty mind-blowing when you really stop to think about it.
It really is, man. It really is. No, I'm getting teared up. Thanks a lot.
Amen. That's what these truths do, man. They reveal to us that most of us have spent most of our lives. Some of us are spending our very lives right now in good faith to an imaginary God.
Yeah.
And Jesus is pointing that out and saying, yeah, that's not at all what I'm like.
I am the good shepherd who lays his life down for the sheep. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he's the hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I'm the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason, the Father loves me, because I lay down my life that I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up again. This charge I have received from my Father.
Bro, that's a mic drop right there. You don't take my life from me. I willfully lay it down. And I do this for these people because I love them. I made them. That's why I reconcile them. I will hold them. I will care for them. I will bring them home. There is one shepherd and there is one flock. And bro, if there was ever a passage to make war on all of our paradigms of church, it's that one.
Mm-hmm.
No, my tribe's this and my tribe's that and my tribe's over here. No, you're not a part of my tribe. You're a part of that tribe. My leader this, my pastor that. It's like, bro, there is, as the scriptures reveal, one church, one flock, one shepherd. And it's him, dude. that any under shepherd, right? Anybody that you want to call a leader, a teacher,
Mhm.
right? Our job, man, is simply pointing people to the good shepherd
Mhm.
who laid down his life for us and saying, man, life's found in him.
Mhm.
I'm here just to help you. I'm here really just to remind you, to teach you of that truth, to invite you into that, man, to walk with you in it. There is nothing else I can do for you. You know why? Because I'm a part of the flock with you. If you want to get
Right.
technical, I'm
Yeah.
just
I was
another sheep with you.
I was just gonna say. I was just gonna say.
So good, man.
He
I
has
think this is
other
why they call it
sheep.
good news.
Exactly. He has other sheep that are not of this fold. And I wonder if it's like Jesus comes and really is sharing in vivid ways stories of forgiveness and inclusion, right? For those
Yeah.
their whole entire life who have been told they're on the outside. So instead of forcing, you know, religion upon people, instead of forcing what is or what ought to be rather onto people, or even protecting, you know, like in a real like kind of just guarding who's in,
Yeah.
kind of a thing, Jesus all of a sudden starts eating meals, including tax collectors, like for crying out loud, political insurrectionists, like dudes that are like among his squad,
Yeah, dude.
Simon the
Straight
Zealot,
up like
Matthew.
playboys, prostitutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Um, and so
Dealers.
like no wonder why like these guys are just getting like the worst of who these dudes are coming out, because he is
Yep.
freaking jacking with everything they believe and do. Their whole modus operandi. I don't think I even said that right. I might have to edit that out. Their MO. And he's, and they're proving to be hired hands who run in the face of a wolf. He's exposing that in them. Not
Yep.
because I think he wants to be like a jerk,
No, I
but
think I
because
don't
he
want to get
cares
into
for
it now,
people.
but yep. He definitely reveals later on in the chapter, as we'll get into in the next episode, man, like he's not doing this out of spite or hatred or dislike, even. This is from a place of compassion, man.
Mm-hmm.
Healing that family, that dude on the Sabbath, out of compassion. What
Yeah.
he's saying right now to reveal this to the Pharisees, compassion. Sermon on the Mount, where he's like, "Oh, you guys are all about like what ought to be and what that looks like." Oh, cool. Out of compassion, let me show you what that actually means.
Yeah. But he definitely wields tension in a masterful way. Like
Yeah, purposefully.
he creates this whole scene just by
Yeah,
healing this guy, on the Sabbath. But it's the you got to face the truth
yeah,
of what is,
yeah,
before you can actually see a God who loves you in your what is. Because if
yep.
I'm over here in fantasy land about my what is, and I'm making excuses for my what is, and I'm
Oh
like
yeah, dude.
softening my what
It's okay
is,
that we're struggling right now, but the Lord is good. I feel like something's coming.
and that's one of the beautiful things about grace is it allows you to call a thing a thing.
Yep.
It allows you to be honest, because if I need my record and my life and my righteousness to count, then I need to polish that turd as much as I can, dude. I need to put as much lipstick on that pig as I can. I need to make that thing look nice and shiny. But if I know that I have the righteousness of someone else given to me as a gift, if I
Yeah.
know I'm loved and held by a love that will never run out, well, then I think I'm free to just kind of say what is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you got me. That's lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
Oh man,
yeah,
I was
we
really
know.
proud of that turd that
Yep.
I spent a lot of years polishing. That
Yeah.
that resume I had over there.
Yeah, man. We get to set down the resume, man, and Pick up that party invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Recline in the goodness of a shepherd who says, no, this is a story about me and my love for you. Welcome.
What we're saying is really just captured in this one phrase. I'm the door, which is kind of crazy because he was saying legitimate shepherds enter by the door, not climb the walls, right? And he's saying, I'm the door. You won't enter by way of me. You want to enter through Moses. Moses is not the door at all. Moses will have you scaling walls, dude, and ruining lives. That's what disciples of Moses do. I'm the door. When you enter through me, man, now you have the wisdom of God, which is the gospel, which is Jesus himself, to be able to look at relationships this way, to be able to process any kind of leadership or any kind of shepherding. But he says, I am, he says, I'm the door. Anyone who's enters by me will be saved. He will go in and out and find pasture. You get this idea. It's like in and out, man. Freedom. It's freedom.
Yep. Yeah, you're going to live independency on me. In and out. And that's where life, that's where the dance, right, is found. You're free to stop turning it into a march. Yeah, it's a dance.
Cheers to that.
Dude. Till next time, because the story only gets better from here in chapter 10. Cheers.
Cheers.